Hello, everybody. Welcome to the official Kandy Podcast. My name is Ron Kuchler. I'm the founder and editor-in-chief of Kandy Magazine. This is a sports edition of the official Kandy Podcast. I'm joined this week by Ted Maier, who is a former sports agent and is currently the softball coach for the USC women's softball team. Hello, Ted.
Hey, how you doing, Ron?
I'm doing good, Ted. I'm doing good. Hey, thanks for joining me on this. We go back and forth on Instagram, you and I. We talk about sports a bit because, and on Twitter, because I have a very big opinion about things sometimes. I like making my predictions, and you always like to chime in on them.
Yeah.
But before we get to that, I thought we'd talk about women's softball because I know nothing about it other than Jennie Finch.
Well, I'm glad you started with Jennie Finch because she is sort of like and I'm going to tie all this in too, with what you do with your magazine and everything too, and how I became such a big fan of softball and where it had started and where it is today. Because I went to school at the University of Arizona, where Jennie Finch went to school, and I played baseball. So my whole life growing up, I loved baseball, played baseball. My dream was to be a pro baseball player. But obviously, you know the odds of that happening are very slim to none. So you always have a backup plan. But I played baseball at the University of Arizona. I had to walk on because I injured myself in junior college. So I wasn't going to get a scholarship with a bad shoulder. But I did walk on at Arizona, and the team I was on was preseason ranked number 2 and a really good team, but I was a backup shortstop. And
who was the big guy of the team at the time?
Well, it's funny, when I got there, Arizona had just gone to the College World Series, and Scott Erickson was a pitcher there. JT Snow played first base. Trevor Hoffman was a shortstop. And they had just left.
Okay, I had a friend that went to U of A at the same time. He played baseball. He was a pitcher. He only played one season, I think. Rob Kurtz.
Okay, I think how old is he now?
He passed away last year because of cancer.
Oh.
But he would have been around 50.
Okay. I'm 51, so
yeah.
If you play, yeah. So I was, I basically I was a walk-on, and they had 3 walk-ons.
Okay.
Kenny Lofton was there. The head of the major league, Tony Clark, who's the head of the Players Association now, was on both the basketball team and baseball team. So I walked on. As a walk-on, they basically said, okay, you kind of have a bum shoulder. We have a loaded roster. You're basically going to redshirt. And then I came back the next year, and we had 12 guys drafted and moved on to the pros after that year. And so including the shortstop ahead of me, Jason Bates, who went to the Rockies. So I thought, hey, I'm going to be the starting shortstop. I'm ready to go. It's my 5th year in college, senior year. And then the coach, Jerry Kendall, who's an icon, really, really nice man, called him into his office and he said, hey, listen, Ted, we love you. You're great. You're a walk-on that made it. But we recruited the first team All-American shortstop, junior college shortstop from Minnesota, and he's not going to come here and not play. And I'm like, so what does that mean about me? I have to be a backup again? And he goes, well, I put in a call to New Mexico, and you could transfer there, and they're expecting you to go there, and you could play there, at New Mexico. And I didn't want to go. I was like, 3 years at Arizona as a fraternity. I loved it there. The women, the parties. It was the best experience you could have going to college because it's the same reason Rob Gronkowski went to Arizona. He had 300 schools that wanted him to come play football. He picked Arizona because of the pool parties. But yeah, no, I wasn't going to uproot, where I was in school with all my friends and fraternity and finishing up my college degree to go play baseball at a smaller school that I didn't care about. So, but anyways, long story short, baseball was in my blood. We had an amazing softball team at Arizona because back then, we're talking 90, 91, 92, 93 is when I went to Arizona. And it was UCLA and Arizona softball that were dominating the sport. And you think of at that time, softball was, when I went to high school, it was like, hey, girls who play softball, basically lesbians, right? Big athletic girls, lesbians.
Yeah.
There weren't any quote unquote really hot girls playing softball. And but at Arizona, when I was there, I actually went out with a couple of softball players because they were very attractive. They would be at a fraternity party, like, oh, this girl's really cute. And they're like, oh, you play softball? And all of a sudden, I was like, wow, like we kind of have a common interest, baseball, the sport of baseball, softball, basically the same thing. Well, after I graduated, I kept following Arizona sports, and in all sports, that's my school, and softball and baseball and football, and we're known as a basketball school, and we finally won a national championship in '97. But it was either UCLA or Arizona almost every year going to the Women's College World Series, and usually one of them won it. I mean, basically, out of 30 national championships, I think 20 were won by UCLA or Arizona at that time. So
wow,
dominated the sport. So I was always a fan, followed the softball, but then then Jennie Finch showed up, and in Arizona went to the World Series, won the national championship with a pitcher who was tall, gorgeous, this beautiful blonde pitcher who went undefeated the entire season and won the national championship, on TV, where all these little girls were like, wow, and boys were like, wow, she's gorgeous, and she's athletic, and and super, super talented, and won a national championship. And all of a sudden, the sport of softball wasn't just for lesbian girls or quote unquote dykes or whatever they were called. Girls started instead of playing soccer and doing dance and gymnastics, like, hey, I want to be like Jennie Finch, I want to play softball. So the sport of softball started really growing with Jennie Finch, becoming almost the face of it, because here's, and she's married now, with kids, and, here's a straight girl, pretty girl, like, you don't have to be this, like, unattractive, butch girl to play softball. You could be pretty and do girly things and still be an athlete in this sport. And all of a sudden, like, in the 2000s, because of Jennie Finch, more and more girls, attractive girls, who could be models, were also athletes and playing softball. And, for the rest of the world, like yourself, Ron, like, you're not really privy to it because it's, it wasn't really on TV that much. And but
I knew about Jennie Finch. I knew about Jennie Finch.
Yeah, you did know about Jennie Finch. So, but more and more girls started playing softball, and the sport itself started growing because it got more and more popular. It started showing up on ESPN, ESPN2, 3, whatever the case, ESPNU. And it's grown in the last 20 years so much because of Jennie Finch that not only, was it UCLA and Arizona dominating the sport, but it grew to the SEC, it grew to the ACC, it grew to the Big 12, the Big 10, where a lot of the girls that you see playing at Florida, LSU, Oklahoma, Alabama, half the roster are girls from Southern California, and I've been following this through my whole life, where it's just been my thing. But in the last 10 years, the sport has grown so much that, I just went to the Women's College World Series. But to get back to how I got into coaching at USC, I've loved the sport because, you watch the game, it's a faster game. The girls are so emotional that, when I played baseball, you were taught to, like, not show any emotion, you know what I mean? And there's unwritten rules, and you don't, run up the score. You don't steal when you're up 12-0, and you don't hit a home run and then flip the bat and show up the pitcher. There's a level of maturity and professionalism in the sport of baseball, at least when I was growing up.
Well, there was.
And yeah, there was. We'll get to that. But but softball, when I was watching softball, it's just so funny how, a girl makes a diving catch and they go crazy and they celebrate it. And, a girl makes an error and it's like, oh man, she hangs her head, but everyone's there picking her up, and in the
like
dugout,
Little League baseball again, you know.
It kind of is. It's Little League baseball, but
I mean, a lot more talented, but that's
extremely more talented. It's super high level.
The enthusiasm, though. The enthusiasm, you know.
Yeah, the enthusiasm. It makes the game more exciting. Where baseball, like someone who's not a baseball fan could watch a game like, this is boring. You know what I mean? Like, unless it's the World Series or playoffs, or it's a 7-4 game and the bottom of the ninth, 2 outs, bases loaded, and Aaron Judge is up, who could hit a home run to win it on a walk-off. It's usually kind of boring until you get to those type of moments. But softball, watching it, it's like always exciting because the girls keep it exciting. And every inning, they could be striking out and still cheering each other on. They could, just give up a grand slam and smile about it, which is so different than baseball, and it kind of kept the game exciting no matter what was going on. And of course, Jennie Finch brought a new light to it, to both, pretty girls who want to play, and then the males who are like, hey, I'm watching girls in, these tight uniforms that are pretty sexy playing a sport at a high level. And you kind of get the best of both worlds, where it's like, hey, you're watching a game that's fun and exciting, that I love, baseball and all the intricacies that go on, with runners trying to, hit and run or bunt runners over. The pitcher, is she going to throw a slider? Is she going to throw a changeup? But yet I'm watching hot girls play it too. You know what I mean? So you're interested. You know what I mean? You're constantly interested in it, and it got me excited of the game to where Arizona. I was following the team, and in 2007 and 2008, another cute blonde pitcher for Arizona won the national championship, won back-to-back national championships, and her name's Taryn Mowat, and she was a small, not a 6-foot pitcher like a lot of the dominant pitchers are, but you're just your average 5'6", 5'5", 5'6" pitcher that looks like, a pretty surfer girl blonde from Southern California, but yet she was, dominating these badass, hitters from all these big schools, and she had to beat Monica Abbott, who is this 6'2" lefty dominant pitcher from Tennessee. And she single-handedly pitched, and this is something that's different than baseball too, is she pitched every inning of the regionals, super regionals, and the World Series to win the national championship.
So they can do that? They can do that in softball?
You can do that. You can do that in softball. I mean, they don't really do that anymore. Softball's starting to turn into baseball, where they have 3 pitchers now, and they have relief pitchers, and they'll switch off starters. But back then, you had a pitcher who could throw 150 pitches a game, and they could throw 2 or 3 games a day. So
let's bring this back to what guys care about and compare it to baseball. Yeah. And so she's on the mound. She's 45 feet out?
Yeah, 40.
So the time it takes from the time it leaves the mound to get to home plate, is it the same as a baseball 60 feet apart?
Well, a girl could throw a hard-throwing pitcher in softball could wing it about 70 miles per hour to home plate from that distance, which is the equivalent to baseball of 105 miles per hour. So, say 68 mile per hour fastball in softball is about a 97 mile per hour fastball in baseball. Okay? So we're not. I mean, trust me. I remember when I was in high school, like the softball pitcher. We had a dominant softball pitcher in my high school, and she challenged the baseball team to bat against her. And like, softball, come on. She struck all of us out. Yeah. Because it's just, we're not used to the timing of it being so much closer, and the speed is pretty fast. So, but anyways, when I worked as a sports agent, I worked with like big names like John Elway and Scottie Pippen, and Globetrotters, Olympic athletes. I had athletes of all different sports, X game athletes and, different types. But I did have a couple softball players, and one of them was Taryn Mowat, the pitcher from Arizona, who won 2 ESPY awards for Best Female Athlete of the Year and Best Female Performance of the Year. Oh, wow. So she was at the ESPYs. She won, Peyton Manning gave her an ESPY, handed the ESPY to her, and she won 2 ESPYs. So I started working with her, because you look at her, she's from Southern California. She looks like she could be a surfer girl. She looks like she could be a model, but she was this, national championship pitcher for Arizona. following kind of in the footsteps of Jennie Finch from like 7-8 years prior. And I was trying to get her, appearances in some shows and commercials and endorsement deals and things like that. But she went on to be a pro, softball player, and then which is a whole nother story. There's only like 8 teams. And then she went on to coaching, and she was coaching at Ole Miss as a pitching coach. And then she finally called me up one day and said, "Hey, I got my dream job at Arizona, back at her alma mater." And so she was like, "This is my dream job. This is what I'm going to do full time. So you don't have to worry about trying to get me endorsements or things like that. Like I don't have time for that." And she hung up the phone with me, and I thought to myself, I was like, "Hey, being a talent agent and trying to get people on movies and TV shows and magazines and things like that has been my dream job. But I would love to coach women's softball because I love the game, baseball. A lot of my buddies I played with in college went on to be coaches, but it took them years and years of working their way up to getting to being a head coach somewhere or getting somewhere in the minor league systems or whatever. And at my age, I didn't have time for that. So 4 years ago, I reached out. I had an intern at my office that went to USC. I said, "How come USC doesn't have a Division I softball team?" Where UCLA, the rivals, has been dominating the sport for 30 years. My school, Arizona, has been dominating the sport. The Pac-10, now the Pac-12, has 9 teams out of the 12. How come USC is one of the teams that doesn't? Because you would think USC, Southern California, is where the majority of the talent comes from all these schools that have great softball players. 50 to 60% of them come from Southern California.
I believe it.
It's amazing. So my intern comes back and reports back to me and says, "Yeah, I don't understand why we don't have one either, but we do have a club team." I go, "What's that?" Well, it's basically like a JV team. We play other schools' JV teams. And there's students at the school, but it's not a Division I team. So I go, "Oh, okay. Give me their information." I reached out to the team. I go, "Who's your guys' coach?" They said they didn't have one. So I said,
"Clubs
"Do you
don't
have one?"
Coach. Yeah, clubs don't have coach.
So I reached out. I mean, they can have coaches if they want it, but so I reached out to them. I go, "Well, who coaches you guys?" They're like, "Well, we just have one of the parents coaches their base at the games, but we don't have a coach." I asked if they wanted the coach. They said, "Yeah." So now I coached them. In my first full season, we went to the actual club softball World Series, and we played teams like Clemson and Michigan State and Air Force and Northwestern and Florida State. So yeah, that's how I got involved as coaching the USC softball team. It's a club team. We play UCLA, Fullerton, Irvine, San Diego State, Grand Canyon, and NAU in our conference, in our division. In the year we went to the World Series, we won our division. We went up to the playoffs, and we played Oregon and Irvine and Merced that won their conferences or their divisions in the Pacific North, Pacific Central. We're in the Pacific South. And then we won that, and we went to Atlanta, and 16 teams went to Georgia, and we got to go. So That's my whole softball, history. I just got back about 3 weeks ago from the NCAA Division I Women's College World Series, because I had never been before. And Arizona made the World Series, and Oklahoma and UCLA. I think we had Alabama, Georgia, JMU, who had a pitcher that became a star from this because she's African American. There aren't too many African Americans in the sport, but
that's surprising.
Yeah, and that's something that's she brought light to a lot of African American girls who now watched her on. It was the most watched College World Series for women's softball ever, and the sport keeps growing and growing. It actually beat out, I hate to say this, Ron, some of the NHL playoff games on the ratings.
That's ESPN.
Yeah, so that's a whole other story. But yeah, so I love the game. It's grown so much, and I think it'll continue to grow. I feel like it's, at the college level, it's a little bit more exciting. than baseball sometimes, and obviously baseball.
I could see that. So I'm going to chime in with 2 points on this, okay? Because once you brought my favorite sport into the whole equation, that's all. That's hands off, you know. But the other thing is, I have an Arizona connection. Okay.
Okay.
My sister went to Arizona. She never attended a class. Well, I guess what happened is when she got there, she came down with kidney stones, and they couldn't diagnose what it was. And so what wound up happening is that she had really bad kidney stones. She wanted to go in the hospital and everything like that. And my father flew out and packed her up and took her back to New York. So that's my Arizona connection. But that's only one part of the Arizona. The second part of my Arizona connection was, you know who Emily Sears is, right?
Of course.
Okay. Did you attend the Emily Sears cover release party for Kandy that was held at Confidential? It was also our video rap party for our Kandy video that we did. It was 2012. Did you attend that?
I would be mightily shocked if I didn't. I'm pretty sure I did. I mean, It's kind of all your parties are amazing, and I definitely Confidential. Yeah, I'd been there for any event like that. So I'm pretty sure I was there. Well,
I didn't attend that one. I was in Arizona that day because the woman that I had dated, her daughter was graduating from the University of Arizona.
Oh, wow.
So that event, that party I heard was amazing, which I didn't attend. But I was in Arizona attending a graduation, and her daughter actually was a soccer player. When she was a sophomore in high school, she had gotten a full ride offer to play soccer at the U of A. So
cool. So you've seen the campus, you see what it's like. You kind of and for me, I played baseball and football, and to be honest, I thought I was a better football player in high school, but I was so small. I was a late bloomer that none of the big schools recruited me, and if I was going to play football in college, I wanted to be big time. The only big school that was looking at me was Cal. But baseball-wise, I decided, I had a lot of schools, University of San Diego, just a lot of little schools that were interested in me to come play for them. But, if I was going to play college sports, I wanted to be at a big-time school. So I went to junior college instead to kind of, grow. I actually put on, 15, 20 pounds. I grew a couple more inches. I know I was a late bloomer, but I got better. I just, so I went 2 years to junior college, played baseball, and now I was ready to transfer somewhere. And I narrowed down my choices to Florida, Arizona, and then my 2 in-state schools were San Diego State and Cal State Fullerton. And then I realized Florida was just too far from my family in California to go across the country. So it was between Arizona, San Diego State, and Cal State Fullerton. And Arizona and Fullerton, had just been in the College World Series numerous times in the late 80s and the early 90s, or late 80s, because this is now 1990. So I was a little intimidated for those. And San Diego State wasn't really known for baseball. And they also had the major I wanted. So I ended up choosing San Diego State. Did my orientation, talked to the coach. He said, yeah, we know you're injured, so they're not giving out scholarships to people that are injured. So they said, come down, you'll walk on, and we'll make sure your arm's good to go, and then you can make the team. I had a cousin in Tucson that said, hey, wait, I thought you were coming to Arizona to check it out. I go, well, I made my decision. Did you even come to Arizona to look? I go, you know what, the odds of me making the team there and, or Fullerton are going to be tough. San Diego State was, it's San Diego, and it's going to be, easier for me to play baseball there. He's, oh, come on, man, you got to come out and visit Tucson. I go, well, I made my decision. He's like, no, come visit me for the weekend. I'll show you around, and then you can make your final decision. So I went to Tucson. He picked me up from the airport. He drove me to the campus, and I fell in love with it. It was
it's an amazing campus. It's amazing. It's
like being at a resort. If you remember the movie, Revenge of the Nerds and the movie Can't Buy Me Love, both shot there. I fell in love with the place. There was, girls in bikinis all walking around the campus like it was a resort. And then he took me up to the foothills where the football team was having a party, and they, welcomed me with open arms, and hey, come go out in the pool. The cheerleaders are out there playing volleyball, and they're like, "Come in, Ted, come jump in," and they really recruited me hard, and I changed my mind and went to Arizona instead.
Oh, good. Yeah, it's a great campus. I mean, I wish I knew about it when I was looking at colleges, to be honest with you. So I wound up going to Denver, which was a beautiful campus anyway.
Sure, Denver's beautiful.
So the Women's World Series just wrapped up, and who won that?
So Oklahoma Sooners won the national championship.
Okay.
It's the third one that they've won in the past 10 years. So they have now are becoming a powerhouse in the softball world. Half the roster are girls from Southern California. They beat Florida State in a 3-game series. Florida State they both actually had to come through the losers bracket, which was the first time that's ever happened.
How's that happen?
How's that happen? Well, there's two sides of the bracket, and Oklahoma lost to JMU, the James Madison, who had the African American pitcher, and then Florida State lost their first game to Oklahoma State, and they both had to come back because you don't get eliminated until you lose 2 games. So they both had to win out and knock out every other team around them that they played twice. So they both
made the losers bracket. So don't they meet up because they both lost, and the person in the winners bracket goes to the final?
No, they knocked out the 2 teams in the winners bracket. They both did. So they both came into the final series with 1 loss, which has never happened before.
Wow.
And they both but then they start new and they play a 3-game series in which Oklahoma lost the first game, and Florida State was up 1-0, and Oklahoma had to come back and win the last 2 games there to win it. And the stadium seats 13,000 fans. They added an upper deck now. The place was electric. It was so much fun being there. And it's kind of unfortunate for all the other teams that are there because Norman is in Oklahoma City. Norman is about 25 minutes away. So it was like a home game for anytime Oklahoma was playing because it was definitely a biased, crowd.
Gotcha. And the World Series for baseball is going on right now in Omaha.
Going on right now in Omaha, Nebraska. And
who's going to win that?
It's kind of up for grabs, man. Which is kind of exciting. I mean, Arizona baseball made it, and we already did the 1-2 in a barbecue, which means they played 2 games and they're done. Yeah. They lost both, and now they're at the barbecue enjoying the rest of the weekend, or the week. But no, Vanderbilt's one of the top teams, but they lost the game, and they're in the losers bracket now, and it's anybody's really. It's Stanford.
Is that normally the case? Is it normally a toss-up, or is it normally like 1 or 2 teams are going to win it?
You know what? With baseball, like the number 1 team in the country was Arkansas, and they didn't even make it to the World Series because it's just like football. Any given Sunday, somebody could beat you. So that's what kind of makes it exciting. So I would say Vanderbilt is the favorite or the highest ranked team in it, but they've already lost the game. So
okay, is that where Leiter goes to school? Jack Leiter?
Yeah,
he lost 1-0. Yeah,
he lost 1-0, but he struck out 15 batters.
I saw that.
And he gave up a home run, and that was the only run of the game. So yeah, you got to bring some offense, no matter and they have great pitching with Leiter and I can't remember Rocker is the other kid.
Oh, John Rocker's kid?
No, not John Rocker, but he's an Afro-American. He looks like a football player. He should be like a lineman. But but yeah.
So this Jack Leiter getting no run support reminds me of Jacob deGrom with the Mets in the previous seasons, where he got no run support. A little bit different this year, man.
Oh, deGrom is just lights out this year, and I feel bad for the guy from previous years not getting the run support, but he's getting a little bit better this year. And how many starts has he had? 13, 14 or something like that? He's got a 0.50 ERA, which is unheard of.
I know. But here's the deal. So I'm a Mets fan. I grew up a Mets fan. I used to go to Shea Stadium. I used to take the subway to the Shea. My dad was an usher at Shea, so Seaver's my idol. So I grew up a Mets fan, and I respect what deGrom is doing this year. But I think it's premature to put him in the same category as Gibson. And the reason I say that is because back in the day, Gibson would go 9 innings. deGrom goes 5, 6 innings, okay? And he's still dominant. But those last 2 or 3 innings, I mean, you play baseball.
Yep.
You wear down, you know?
Oh, definitely. And I'm glad you're bringing this up because I think that's something you and I agree about. It's hard to compare, Barry Bonds with Babe Ruth, or Joe Montana with Tom Brady, or Michael Jordan with LeBron James. I mean, you can, and people do, but we're talking about different eras, different times where the sport is different, or our health is different, or just the game is different. Yeah, as far as pitchers are concerned right now, the game of baseball is so different in that the starters, to get the win, have to go 5 innings. So they go 5, and they're like, okay, anything else beyond that is bonus. So if they get the 6th inning in, great. If they get 7 in, even better. And then you bring in your middle relievers to kind of bridge it to the closer who comes in the 9th inning.
Yeah.
And pitchers like Bob Gibson and Don Feller and all those guys back in those days, and even in even the 70s with the Tom Seavers, they had a category called complete games. Remember that?
Yeah.
And if you starting pitcher is like, hey, look, my plan is to come in and pitch every 4 or 5 days and throw all 9 innings. And if I'm having a good day, that's the plan. And if things are going well, that's the plan. If you start getting tired, you're getting roughed up, or the 3rd time through the lineup, or the 4th time through the lineup, they're starting to hit the ball around. You're not really, faking them out anymore. Then you pull them and you put in a reliever to kind of throw them off, But I agree with you. Today's and not just the pitchers, but
the hitters, yeah,
the hitters too. And to open up a can of worms, I played baseball. I was taught a certain way. People argue about the unwritten rules, but what I loved about the game was that there's a sense of professionalism and respect. You respect the game. The game is bigger than the player. The game always wins. You know what I mean? And it's a humbling game. Literally the best players in baseball fail 7 out of 10 times. So it's a very humbling game, and it keeps you, humble. You should be humble. Not that you can't celebrate when you win the game or hit a walk-off home run or get excited when it's time to get excited. But when it's not that time, you got to be respectful of the game and the people playing it. And we're all on the same field, sharing the same field, playing the game that we all love, and be respectful about it. So when you start having these, not to jump on millennials, but these millennials playing baseball now, and the one that really got me was Yasiel Puig. He really would upset me. Now I get it. The millennials love, guys like that. And now Fernando Tatis Jr. Because I get it. As a kid, you're playing the game, you're having fun. And as a kid, you're excited about making plays. But as you get older and you understand the game of baseball, especially pro baseball, there's unwritten rules. And I'm not trying to defend the unwritten rules. I'm just saying that they're there, and they're there for a reason to respect the game and the people who played it before us and who played it before them and are currently playing it. But Yasiel Puig was very kind of disrespectful of a lot of the unwritten rules. And nowadays, and I get it. The game is changing. The players are changing. People are changing. I get so mad at millennials, but at the same time, I have to catch myself because it's really not their fault. They're just taught that way, and that's all they know. You know what I mean? I wish they knew how it was back then because it was a different game. I mean, you see Fernando Tatis hop, skip, and a jump and throw his bat 75 feet in the air, and when he hits a home run, like, that would not fly in our day.
No, not at all. Not at all.
And you would get dosed. Like, and I get so mad. I'm watching games. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, if I was a pitcher, I'm like, man, the next pitch is in the next guy's back, or the next time he comes up the bat, he's getting in the back. And it's not to be rude or mean. It's just be respectful. You know what I mean? And
exactly.
it's just disrespectful. Like, it's like dancing on someone's grave or peeing on their grave. Like, hey, have some respect.
Well, I think that when it comes to comparing players from different eras, I think I figured out an argument, and it's not even an argument, but a point of view that maybe can help resolve this whole thing when people are comparing Jacob deGrom to Bob Gibson or Sandy Koufax or Tom Seaver, Nolan Ryan, Greg Maddux, and whatnot, is that those guys back in the day, they were expected to go 9 innings. We agree on that. You're going to go 9 innings. So you have to conserve your energy to go 9 innings, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Right. If they knew back then they were only going 5 or 6 innings, they're going all lights out like Jacob deGrom, throwing 100 miles an hour, 101, 102 for 5 or 6 innings.
You're absolutely 100% correct. I mean, it's such a different mindset going into these games, knowing like,
if you could make one rule change, and we'll get to the spin rate in a second, but if you could make one rule change to baseball right now, I have mine, what would yours be?
Well, I like the fact that they've, because of the COVID year, they had to make some changes, and that, to bring in a relief pitcher, which drove me crazy. They come in and throw 2 pitches or throw the 1 batter and then switch a pitcher, and they have to throw to at least 3 batters. I like that, you know what I mean? But, and I get having the DH and having more excitement with offense, with pitchers not hitting. But I don't know. Like I need something to get it more exciting and then speed it up, and also have more of the players accountable, either for their actions or for them, playing the game. So. What is your rule change?
That's a great thing that you brought up as far as the time, speed of the game, and obviously there would be a rule. I would like to see a rule change when it comes to that. But my rule change was to get rid of the body armor.
Right?
I was watching the game last night. The guy leaned right into it. He's like, I got hit right on his elbow. He's like, oh, take first base.
Yeah, he's got the elbow pad. He's like, okay, he's
Barry Bonds, thank you very much. No wonder you're so freaking good. You're not afraid about getting hit because you got body armor on.
They got shin pads. They got their elbow pads. Their
get rid of it.
Wrist pads. They've got, now they've got face masks and all this shit. Like, basically, and I agree. Like, and then the pitchers get warnings if they get thrown inside. It's just like, man, like, if he's standing over the plate, you're gonna get hit, or you're gonna get at least brushed back, and that's that, because it's, how fair is it for a pitcher, like, has to throw it, and the strike zone is so small nowadays, it's like insane. But no, I agree with you. Get rid of the armor. You're not going to see
the batter's approach. That would totally change the batter's approach.
Oh, definitely. They would be jumping out of the way or not be on the plate so much, which would help the pitchers. Now, let me ask you this, which is, I'm excited for this. I mean, I know this is not, and the reason I'm excited about what's going on now with the pitchers is, hey, look, with all the rule changes helping the hitters, it's not fair to the pitchers, right? Even the steroid era, it's like, oh, it's not fair to the pitchers. Well, I think some of the pitchers took steroids too. Now, maybe they're not as big as McGuire and Canseco, but they throw harder, they have more durability, et cetera.
Durability. It gave them durability.
Gave them faster recovery time, et cetera. But right now, with what's going on, and I think you tweeted about it the other day, is, with them coming down on the pitchers with the sticky stuff on the ball. Now, I'm all about, making it as fair as possible of the game. You know what I mean? Like, have respect for the game, with the whole Houston Astros cheating scandal and stuff like that. Now, there's a gray area. You know what I mean? I play baseball, like, if someone is giving a sign, like a 1 fastball, 2 curve, and we see it, we're we're going to say, hey, that's a fastball coming, dude. Like, be ready for it. Because that's just part of the game. Like, is it cheating? Well, a little bit. But if you're going to make it so blatant, like, hey, one fastball, two curve, it's not really cheating. It's more like, an advantage, right? So that's why you have all these signs. The base coaches give all these, 700 different signs. That's why you see in college all the wristbands and all the numbers, because you got to be able to communicate on the field without the other team seeing what's going on. So, but to have the Astros use to go out of their way to cheat, it was a whole nother story. So that's where I sit on this pitching, situation now with pitchers using, like, hey, look, if you're sweating and it helps you, get the ball grip faster and better, good for you. But if you have to go out of your way to use, you remember like Phil Necro used to do Gaylord Perry, would have the Vaseline on their lid, and like, you know what? Yeah, that's kind of blatant cheating. But like, if you can get away with it, that's good for you. But if you get caught, yeah, it's cheating. Like,
but his ERA was still over 3. He wasn't striking out 300 guys. You know what I mean?
No, I know. So that's why I'm saying, like, I'm all for the pitchers. I was laughing yesterday when all the umpires were like, checking their lids and checking.
I know.
Because look, the pitchers were complaining like, hey, this is not fair. What do you mean it's not fair? You're in the major leagues. Like, if you have to cheat to like beat people, then maybe you shouldn't be in the major leagues. Like,
that's what I tweeted. Yeah, that's what I tweeted. Yeah.
And I agree with that, because look, that's not fair to the pitcher who didn't cheat. You know what I mean? And who probably could admit to the major leagues and could have struck out major league batters, but they are not cheating. You know what I mean? And if you have to use, stick 'em or this or that, to get an advantage over the hitters, no, that's cheating.
Well, here's my other problem is Pete Alonso came out and said that he wants pitchers to keep using it, because if that means that they're going to have better control of the ball and he won't get hit, then keep on cheating. Well, hey, Pete, you know what? There's never been an epidemic of hitters getting hit by pitchers, okay? So this is not a problem that's related to these guys. It's just cheating, It's what it comes down to. So they don't need to stick them, for that purposes, because it's not like they have wild control all the time. They don't get hit. You guys don't get hit that much. So.
I agree with you with that. Like, and I was surprised that Pete Alonso came out and said that. And I feel like he came out and said that because it was almost like a guilt trip. Like, he's defending the pitchers because the hitters had such an unfair advantage with all the rule changes and the strike zone being smaller and the balls being juiced and all stuff, that I almost feel like he feels guilty. Like, oh my God, batting 300 was amazing in the major leagues. Hitting 20 home runs was amazing in the major leagues before, in the 70s and 80s. But now, if you don't hit 40 home runs, like, you're average. You know what I mean? And if you're not hitting 20, you're average. So it's.
There's a point that he made. There's a point that Trevor Bauer made, and I'll concede this point to them. MLB shares its responsibility because they keep tinkering with the baseball, and that's true. And so, like you said, back in the 70s and 80s, you didn't have these outrageous statistics. So why not just go back to what the baseball was like back then?
I would love that, because going back to millennials, like, and again, I'm not hating on them. I do hate on them, but it's not their fault, because they have no control over when they were born and what they were taught and what they know now. But it drives me crazy for us that are our age, because we saw amazing athletes and great, Will Clark. I grew up in San Francisco, so Will Clark, Will the Thrill, man, he had such a beautiful swing and, hit 20 to 25 home runs and was a stud hitter. And, Tony Gwynn with the Padres, a stud hitter, but they weren't hitting 40 home runs and batting 350, and they didn't care about their launch angle and all that crap, and the ball wasn't juice. I feel like it's doing all the hitters and players of the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and even 90s a disservice with the juice ball. And it just drives me crazy watching a baseball game now where, it's like, hey, you're down by 1 run, and the leadoff guy's on first, bunt him over, or do a hit and run, or steal, but get the guy in scoring position. A wild pitch. Oh, he's down at second. Okay, great. Now the hitter, hit the ball to the right side, or bunt him over, or take the ball to the right side, or instead these guys are all striking out trying to hit home runs. I'm like, what are you doing? It's frustrating for someone who played baseball with more of a genuine, feel for the game, where it was more of a game.
Strategy. There's no strategy. That's why people that are traditionals like myself don't like the DH, because all of a sudden you're taking out strategy out of the game. The pitcher is not going to be up there to bunt, type of deal. So. You're not concerned about doing double switches, and stuff like that. And that's what makes the game exciting to fans. Oh, is he going to double switch? He's got to double switch. What's he going to do? You don't do that in the American League.
No, that's the beauty of strategy. You know what I mean? Is trying to out-strategize the other manager or the other team. That's what I love about softball too. Is like it's such a faster, smaller game, that the one little mistake or one little hesitation could cost you a base runner, could cost you a run, or it's so intense that every little move that happens on a softball field, because it's so small and it's so much faster, like a ground ball to short. If you don't charge it, or if it's not hit hard enough, is the girl safe? If she's fast, you know what I mean. If you if you bobble it, safe. If you juggle it, safe.
Those exact same reasons are why I love hockey so much. It's because the slightest mistake can change the game.
Precisely, right? Yeah, you're exactly right. And that's what's driving me crazy about the game of baseball, especially Major League Baseball, where all they care about is their launch angle and how many home runs they could hit. They're striking out 150 times a season, and just
well, you did notice, since they announced this whole crackdown on this, strikeouts are down, batting averages are up. Yeah. So maybe we'll have more of a traditional game the rest of the year. We'll see. So who do you have? So at the beginning of the year, I make my predictions, right? At the beginning of the year, and I've done pretty well over the years. Kind of surprising, to be honest with you. So, so who's your NL National League MVP right now?
Oof. That's tough, because we have some surprising players and some surprising teams, but and I'm a traditionalist of MVP usually goes to the guy who's leading his team to be playing better than they should be.
Yes, I agree.
Like the San Francisco Giants, right? But I'm going to go back to a pitcher. I'm going to go back to Jacob deGrom. I mean, if he keeps playing like this for the rest of the year, and I'm such a traditionalist that I don't like a pitcher winning MVP. I think there's a Cy Young award for them for that. But if he keeps playing the way he's playing, I could see that happening. I mean,
I think you've got to put a caveat in there. One, like you said, he has to keep performing at the level he's performing at. Two, the Mets have to win the division. Okay. If either thing doesn't happen, then he's not a candidate. Okay. There are people who look at the MVP and they say, well, it's the person with the best statistics, and that's right now is Fernando Tatis, right? So he's got he's home runs and RBIs. He's up there. So myself, I think deGrom is right now the most valuable player to a team, because if you took him out of that Mets rotation, with as many injuries they've had, they would not be in first place. They would be 10 games under 500. He holds it together. At the beginning of the year, I said it would be Ronald Acuna. Was and I looked at the statistics earlier, and he's up there. He's right behind Tatis.
Oh yeah, no. Obviously Tatis and him are leading the way as far as the top young players in the National League. They're the millennials' favorites, because they're very flashy. they wear, a lot of, guard pads, and they wear fluorescent colors, and they flip bats, and they do backflips, and they, dance around the bases, and they're definitely becoming the face of baseball, which you and I have just spent the last 20 minutes, not being happy about. But no, I mean, obviously, if the Padres come out as they beat the heavily favored Dodgers and the surprising Giants for first place, and Tatis still has those highest numbers, he'll end up winning it. And if the Braves could, make a rush and end up winning it, and Acuna numbers are better than Tatis at the end of the season, then he'll probably end up winning it. But yeah, I mean, a lot of, because of the internet and social media, and look, there's so many, like, I'm flipping to the channels and it's June, and there's like on the NFL Network, I'm like, every day they have NFL Live for an hour. Like, what in the hell can they possibly talk about football when there's nothing going on? They always find something to talk about, or somebody's, chances this year, or the new.
Well, that's how the NFL has mastered the art of the media to capture attendance. They have been the best at it of any major sport, no question about it. So.
Definitely, and they are number one, and people are interested year round because of that, and that's the era we're in, and that's what I'm saying is, like, you have a Tatis or Acuna that will overshadow others. Like, I look at the Giants, right? And the San Francisco Giants were, again, a scrappy team. They have some leftovers from the World Series teams that, haven't performed in recent years. And it's like, they're a last place team, but it's amazing that the run that they've been doing. And it's not one player. I'm super excited about Yastrzemski, but he hasn't really been that great this year. He's had some big hits, but Posey's back in the, his rare form.
Oh, Posey's huge. I mean, he's having a phenomenal year, Posey. So.
Oh yeah, no, definitely, and so that's what I'm saying. Like, if the Giants somehow, overshadow the Dodgers and Padres and win out the West, it's not one player though. It's a team effort. If the coach, is doing
the coach would get Coach of the Year, no question about that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I see players, having phenomenal games I've never heard of before on that team, and how he's piecing it together is beyond me, and they're winning, so.
That's kind of what's going on with the Mets, even though they're not winning at the same percentage as the Giants. Is that, I mean, they were missing like 6 regulars from their lineup. It's like, I think they were down to at one point Lindor and Alonso or Smith as their only regulars in the lineup or something. It was just ridiculous at some point in the number of injuries, but now they're coming back healthy, so it's the same way. In American League, I would have to go with Guerrero. I think it's a slam dunk for him in American League for MVP. So.
He's a beast, and if he keeps up this pace, yeah, I agree with you. It's just unfortunate that his team. Now again, like, what happens if his team, ends up in 3rd or 4th place, or if they make a run, at the AL East and are in the conversation, in the last month of the season, yeah, and he keeps up his pace, I think he'll win it too. I agree with you.
Yeah. I mean, if it's close at the end of the year and they don't make the playoffs and they wind up, like you said, 3rd or 4th place, then maybe he loses out to whoever is close to him. But if he keeps doing what he's doing at this level, I mean, I don't see how you don't give it to him. I really don't.
I was lucky enough to see him play actually live Friday night. Few nights ago, I was in Baltimore for work, and
that's a beautiful ballpark, huh?
Out in the Orioles Blue Jays game, and he hit 3 to the fence, but he missed. Obviously, he got jammed off the end of the bat. But I was like, damn, like, he missed those, and all 3 of them almost went out of the park, Mm-hmm. And then I heard that his first at bat the next day, he hit a home run. So he's on fire.
Well, I've noticed a couple things with the baseball this year. Like, I've noticed, like, when the guy hits it, I'm like, oh, that's out, and it's a warning track. I was like, oh, they've definitely deadened the ball this year. Just enough.
Thank God, because, like, my brother played, professional pro baseball, and he's not happy with how the.
Oh, Tab did?
What?
Tab?
Tabor.
Tabor, yeah.
Yeah, he he played 5 years with the St. Louis Cardinals minor league system.
Okay.
And then 1 year with the Texas Rangers. But
very cool.
Yeah, he's frustrated when he sees guys get jammed or pop that up, and all of a sudden it's gone. He's like, "What the hell was that? There's no way." Bring it back, guys. Bring back the real baseballs. Let's make it real.
So let's wrap up. Let's criticize Ron's World Series pick. You know I make my picks before the season started in all the sports, right?
Yeah.
So do you remember who I picked?
I want to commend you for your hockey picks, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
I'm not a huge hockey fan because I grew up in San Jose. The Sharks weren't there until after I went to college, but I think it's just for hockey, it's just odd to see like Vegas and Tampa Bay, two hot, warm city, hockey teams, making it to the semifinals all the time. But yeah, I don't have it in front of me, but who were your picks for the World Series again?
Okay, so I have the Padres. Oh, and again, these are not homer picks because that's the one thing about me. I'm a Mets fan, right? So
yeah.
So I got this year. I got the Padres over the Yankees, and the Yankees are not looking too good.
No.
And the Giants, like you said, they're a sleeper. They could possibly do it if they keep playing the way they are.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm just waiting for for them to hit reality. But if they keep this up, they could do it. And I grew up a Giants fan, and a lot of disappointment through the years. But in 2010, 2012, 2014, when they won, 3 World Series in 5 years, nobody expected it. It was like we didn't have the big, huge star. I mean, Buster Posey was a star, I guess, but they were scrappy teams, and they would somehow, they had the pitching, and I think that's huge. You have all these big hitting stars, Yankees, Aaron Judge and Mike Stanton, and you have these big name hitters, but I feel like it really comes down to pitching, Is
Rigetti still the pitching coach up there?
No, he finally retired, I think, when Bochy
retired.
But yeah, this is a team sport, and with all the big names and the flashy bat flips and and all the people being tweeted out and all the stuff, it comes down to the team winning. And it's funny, like the Dodgers dominate during the regular season, but like it was always Clayton Kershaw who couldn't deliver in the playoffs, in his career, and last year he finally did, but it was really their pitching and timely hitting is what gets through it. And so you don't need the big name home run hitter, you know what I mean, to win it all. But
I think in baseball, when you bring up the Dodgers, I think managerial makes a big difference. Dave Roberts, the decisions he makes, you scratch your head. You just scratch your head.
I agree with you 100%. I mean, as a Giants fan, we're always rooting against the Dodgers. So seeing them in the playoffs the last 3 or 4 years, it was almost comical to see him make decisions that imploded them. He literally cost them the World Series, a few times, in my opinion.
I agree. I completely agree. Yeah.
Making pitching changes when he shouldn't have, or he should have, or putting pulling hitters and putting pitch hitters, or just the hit and runs, or not this or that, or not doing this, or not bunting people over, or it's just he didn't. He it's almost like he had the talent to win it all, and it's what got them there. Then he had to stick his nose in it and try to play manager, and screwed it up. Like I agree with you. Like he was horrible. I mean,
people would go to me like, Ron, how come you're not picking the Dodgers? Like you never pick them. Never once do you pick the Dodgers. I go 2 words: Dave Roberts.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
I said, if there's somebody else in the dugout, I would probably pick the Dodgers because I don't hate the Dodgers. I just like Dave Roberts. Okay, you just watch. It was like for me watching the Rangers play hockey with David Quinn as the coach. Just like, this guy is killing me. He doesn't know what's going on in the game. He's not paying attention. He's like a robot. Oh, gotta do this. Forget about the feel of the game. I'm just gonna make this change.
I mean, that's a whole nother topic that you could on another show, is the analytics of, you know what I mean? But being a purist, like you just, yeah, you got to make decisions based on what you think is going to happen and what's right. But a lot of it's gut, a lot of it is feeling, a lot of it is, somebody's energy, somebody's riding their momentum. Like, oh no, he's struck this guy out 3 times, but it's the 9th inning. Let's put in a lefty on lefty, and it screws up the whole thing. You know what I mean? And the whole analytics. I get the analytics. I get it. You know what I mean? It's kind of
like I said, it's a whole nother conversation for a whole nother podcast, because we could talk about shifts and launch angles and bunting and intentional walks and everything else, like you said. So. But this was great, Ted. I enjoy talking sports with somebody who's knowledgeable and not just a fan. There's a difference between being knowledgeable and a fan, and you're definitely knowledgeable. So.
Yeah, I love seeing your tweets and I'm not a huge Twitter fan, but like whenever I see your tweets, and I'll jump on there every once in a while. But like I enjoy talking sports with people who are knowledgeable too, that understand what's going on. There's so many fans out there that say stuff they have no idea how to back it up or what they're saying, or just saying it to get a rise out of people. But
that's the Rangers Twitter. I got to stay off Rangers Twitter because it drives me nuts. I'll write something, I'm like, you know what, this guy's not worth it. Delete. I'm so passionate about the Rangers. I
stopped. I used to tweet a lot, but like I get caught up in arguments and trying to convince people, or and then people start getting personal, or it's like it's not worth it. You know what I mean?
Oh, I know. I hate the personal stuff. When people get personal, forget it. So.
Hey, Ron, I love this. I love talking sports with you. I love your events and your parties and the Kandy magazine, and that's a whole nother topic. Like with what just happened at Victoria's Secret, and
we talked about that earlier this morning with the girls.
Oh man!
Anyway, that's another topic. Let you know this. We turned 10 this August.
Yes, and I'm excited.
So we're celebrating September 11th with a party. I'll get the details out soon on it. So you want to put that on your calendar. Little red, white, and blue Patriot Day.
Yes, it is.
So I'll just do that. Reserve the date, and let's do this again. Come up with some new topics. This was fun. I think the people are going to be. I think the people who listen to this will be 90% in agreement with what we've said. So
that's great. And the 10% that aren't, that's fine too. I mean, that's why people have their opinions, and as long as you can back it up, So
okay. Anything you want to close out with?
Well, I just wanted to say, thank you for having me. And, I don't post a lot on Twitter or anything, but you can follow me on my Instagram at Ted Maier. And I look forward to talking to you more about more things and going to your parties. And, us straight guys still need a way to enjoy ourselves without being Me Too'd or looked shunned on, or having to say I'm a his, he, him, whatever. But
oh God, Ted. I so hard to stay away from that stuff. I just I'm an easy target. You know that, so I gotta just sometimes shut up. So
I know. So, but I'm glad you do what you do, and I look forward to jumping on here in the future and doing more topics of sports and women.
Yeah, and you know what? In a month we got the NFL training camp, so that would be a good thing to talk about. So
I would love to talk. Football. We didn't even touch football, and I'm a huge Rams fan with season tickets. I know.
I want to talk about that with you next time. So okay.
All right, man.
All right. Have a good rest of your day. All right, buddy.
You too. Thanks, Ron.
Take care. Bye.